Hey, everybody, Off the Mic Sports Network here, another edition of Off the Top Rope. So a lot of debate already because now based off of what happened at Double or Nothing, we know the two main matches that are happening at All In Texas. It's going to be Mercedes Mone versus Toni Storm for the AEW Women's World Championship, and for the AEW World Championship, Jon Moxley versus Hangman Adam Page. And presumably, we're also going to get Kenny Omega versus Kazuchika Okada. That's going to happen too. And that's been, rumored in the background since December. And, cool. Like, we've seen that match before. Hey, seeing it on American soil will admittedly be kind of cool. But at the end of the day, who really cares? But what this comes down to is what's going to main event this show. Because July 12th is coming up, man. It's like just over a month away. We're looking at about 6-7 weeks down the line. What's going to main event this show? Because there has been a push, and I think a lot of this is initiated because a lot of the sickos and a lot of the AEW fans in their feelings are worried. Hey, WWE Evolution is happening on July 13th in Atlanta, Georgia. That was announced over the weekend, Saturday night's main event. They're doing a whole little set of a bunch of events similar to what they did in Tampa, and they're doing another Raw, just a whole weekend of events capped off with Saturday night's main event. Evolution's going to be a centerpiece of this, and I think they're doing Great American Bash and NXT show out there. So there is a push in the fan base to have Toni Storm and Mercedes Mone be the main event of All In Texas. I'm here to tell you that should not happen. And make no mistake about it. Jon Moxley main eventing another pay-per-view. Listen, him and Hangman have good chemistry, but this version of Jon Moxley sucks. And he has not had very many good matches since he became the world champion as a member of the Death Riders. So, but the significance of this match with Hangman, and Hangman being a beloved character, the conquering cowboy coming into Texas, even though he's from Virginia, coming in, trying to conquer the Death Riders, to me, that's main eventing this show. Separate from that, you have microwaved, and I've talked about this extensively on the channel. You have microwaved a feud that you didn't need to go to. Everybody's saying, well, they're the two biggest stars in the division. Yeah, because who else is there? Both these two women have beaten the shit, literally, figuratively, and just whatever, however you want to characterize it, from a physical perspective and just from, just a booking perspective, has just murdered this women's division to the point where these are the only two women left. So they had to do this. They didn't have to do it now, but they were forced into it because booking is terrible. Mercedes doesn't lose. Toni hasn't lost. Mariah May's leaving. Chris Statlander's lost way too much. Willow Nightingale's involved with the Death Riders. There's nobody left. Megan Bayne just lost. There's nobody in this division that is worth a shred of a shit, sadly. There's a lot of talented women there, but their booking's terrible, and there's no reason for them to be even thought on the same wavelength as these two women. But just because they're the two talented women and there's an Evolution pay-per-view, an all-women's pay-per-view happening the night after, does not mean you need to main event your show with a women's match. Because some people are saying, if you don't main event with Toni Storm and Mercedes Mone this year, AEW may never main event with a women's match. First of all, Tony Khan may claim that he cares about women's wrestling. He doesn't. Because if he did, he would have told Mercedes Mone at some point, or whether it's Mercedes creative control or it's Tony Khan being a fucking mark, maybe it's a combination of the two, they would have stopped this at this point and had at some point started to put over and elevate some women rather than having Mercedes and Toni just beat everybody up. And Toni Storm just beat everybody up to the point where nobody's credible. Athena, hey, she was hidden away, brought back for one match with Mercedes and immediately goes right back to Ring of Honor. Guys, just because there is a women's pay-per-view happening literally the same weekend does not mean you need to force the issue. You are already forcing the issue with having a match that does not need to happen at this point. Yes, you need to sell tickets, but why do you need to resort to this to sell your tickets? Because there's nobody else left. This is a very top-heavy women's division. This is a very top-heavy company. The top superstars are the top superstars. And if you're not, and if you're in the middle, nobody gives a shit about you because you're just a loser. That's just the way that this company has operated. So I hate to break it to you women's wrestling fans, who, by the way, you're just so disingenuous. You don't give a shit. You don't give a shit. You really don't care. Okay? This is all about, hey, the other place, the evil Fed, is doing an all-women's show because their women's division, like, of the few things that have been done right in WWE this year, the women's division is fucking outstanding. This is no longer the previous era's women's division where they were solely relying upon the four horsewomen, which is Charlotte Flair, Becky Lynch, Bayley, and Sasha Banks, Mercedes Mone. Look at WWE right now. Charlotte just lost at WrestleMania. Becky just lost at Backlash in her first singles match back to a younger talent from Ireland that she's trying to get over. Bayley has been putting people over ever since being given the women's championship after basically a decade of being in the shadows outside of that one extraordinary title reign that she had in the Thunderdome during COVID. Like, Tiffany Stratton, you've got Io Sky, Rhea Ripley, who everybody seems to hate, but Rhea Ripley is the new era. Bianca Belair is going to be coming back at some point really soon. I could keep going down the list. Sol Ruca down in NXT, Stephanie Vicaire, Julia's up at the main roster. Roxanne Perez, who I think is one of the best young talents in women's wrestling today. The women's division in WWE, they showcase their women and they put them on pedestals and they put people over. They don't bury the rest of their division in the name of doing one dream match. And let me ask you guys this question. What's going to happen after the match at All In with Toni and Mercedes? Either, like, I don't know if they're going to make this a winner take all match, but if Mercedes, I'm assuming that that's probably what's going to ultimately end up happening, is both titles are going to be on the line. Mercedes is going to win. I'd be stunned if Mercedes lost. That's the way this whole thing has been going. And then what do? The rest of your division, there's nobody outside of Willow Nightingale that even measures, and she's going to need to work her way back up to even be thought of as a credible threat. So just because it's a dream match and just because, hey, your two best women are being forced into a match that they didn't need to do because you're desperate to sell tickets because no other women in your company are even credible enough to warrant a spot on this card. And that falls at the feet of Tony Khan because he should have been booking this shit better. But if you guys are just trying to rationalize that because Evolution is happening, that's why you need to have a women's match in the main event. No, you need to have the best story in the main event. And as much as I don't like what Jon Moxley represents as the leader of the Death Riders in the World Championship, that's main eventing this show with Hangman because there's way too much on the line. Because as I've said in other videos, Hangman needs to win. Otherwise, AEW's dead as a company. They are creatively bankrupt if they go the wrong way and make that decision. There's way too much drama, way too much on the line. It's very predictable what's going to happen between Toni Storm and Mercedes Mone. Despite what you all may think, Mercedes is winning the championship, and that's a terrible decision in my opinion. So it's not main eventing. I'm sorry. This is not to disrespect women's wrestling, but this is what happens when you book your women's division in a certain way where it doesn't feel like a main event, even with the star power behind it. That's not to discredit women's wrestling. I think these women are incredibly talented, but you've buried your entire women's division to the point where you're having two champions fight over one championship, which makes no sense. So, I mean, we'll see what happens, man. But anyway, I'll see you guys soon.